The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, this is Mary, and I'm just going to wait a couple more minutes. We have 3 people. We're going to see if some others show up. So we're going to give them a few more minutes to get online. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start. My name is Mary Howard, and I am one of the business analysts for the WebBGAS system. I, along with Charlene Carr and Crystal Pender, will be conducting the webinar today. So how we'd like this to go is you're all going to be muted. So if you have any questions, use your GoToWebinar toolbar and go to the question box and state any questions you may have. We'll be taking breaks throughout the webinar to respond to those questions. And at the very end, we'll unmute everyone and you can go ahead and ask your questions. If you would please, just click in the hand little box there, check that, and we'll make sure to address you and answer any questions you may have. Okay, so let us go ahead and get started here. Okay, so with the logging in process is when the WebBGAS screen comes up, there's a few things I did want to point out before we went ahead and logged in. You will see here, there are 3 different links. One is if you forgot your password, if you forgot your username, and if you need a user account, a new user account. For the Need New User Account, when you click on it, it'll open up in a second tab. And we have here a document that gives you a step-by-step process for applying for an account with WebBGAS. Now, the important thing for you to know is that all of your state users must go through their SPO to get an account. So if they contact the help desk asking for an account, we're going to refer them to you. You have to approve whether they get an account or not, and then what type of account should they get. Should it be a state user account, a supervisor account, that sort of thing. And this document is here, and you can go here anytime and pull it up. So you can refer to it also, but I wanted to let you know that was there. A couple other items I wanted to point out is if they need assistance, they can always contact our help desk team for any kind of assistance they may have in navigating WebBGAS. We can only assist them in how to enter data or navigate the system. If they have any questions regarding what needs to be entered, we'll also refer them back to their SPO. Another thing I did want to point out is down here, you will note there is, at the bottom of the screen, there is the SPO list and the state contact list. So if they can also refer to the SPO list. And if they click on that, it'll open in a document form. And it has the state and then the SPO for each of the applications. And there's also a state contact list. And I wanted to point these out because when we log in, there's one area I did want to show you that is keeps these lists updated. And then here it comes up in a PDF format. So it has the state, like I said, and then all of the applications and who they can contact for that application. All right. So to log in, once you log in, the first thing will appear is what we call the window shade, and that just has the basic information about what's happening within the BGAS system. Once you've read through it, you can simply click on the window shade itself and it'll close, and up will come your document within WebBGAS. And I just want to go over a few things here. This will be your main working dashboard. So to start, I'm going to start here. You'll see available block grants. And we always have the most recent on at the front of the screen. You can do the drop down and you will see here are all of the MHBG block grants up to 2013. I did want you to see here that it's from 2019 down through 2013, you have the two separate screens. You have the report screen and the application screen. And then starting in 2019, 2020, they now have them combined together. So that's why you'll see here report and application. And I'm going to go to 2021 and simply click on go. All right. So now here is the dashboard. And along here is the what we call the left-hand menu tree. And up along here is the upper menu tree. Now, I had shown you the SPO list and the state contact list, and that information is located under state profile here at the top. I'm just going to go in and select a state. I also wanted to point out we are in UAT, which is our test site. So any of the data you see is going to be fake. Now, so when the state logs in, we ask them to come to the state agency tab and update any information they may have, be it path, MHSA, so on and so forth. And I understand, and then we have here SAMHSA contacts, and I understand that for MH, we have one person that goes in and updates this information. But like the information, the SPO list that I pointed out, gets pulled from here. So please make sure before you begin that this information is correct and has you in as the SPO for that area, for that application. That was one thing. The other thing I wanted to point out was, once again, it's only found here on the top menu tree, is standard reports. And if you go in, you have all of these standard reports built in for your use. Now you'll notice here, we have SAMHSA operational. Now only the BGAS team and the folks at SAMHSA see this section, the SAMHSA operational section. But these are reports that you can use to collect data. And you'll see we have the SABG assessment and plan submission. We have it for SABG. We also have it for MHBG. We also have user roles and access. And this will tell you, you can go in here, this one, and set up whom you want to see has access for what states. So you can select a specific state. You can select all states. You can also you'll see here, if I do the drop down for the state jurisdiction sections, you can do it for a region, and you can also do it for an SPO assignment. So you can go in and select your name or someone else's name and then run it for mental health, PAMI, PATH. And then once again, if I come down here, you'll see we have the CSAP project officers, the CSAP project officers. If we go on down, here are the project officers for mental health. So you can select one of those and then run the report. Now you can run the report on the web, or you can run it as a PDF, Excel, or Word document. This is called the parameter page. And all of the parameter pages for the reports are basically set up the same way, depending on what report you want to run. For example, if I want to come here and we want to do it for reported expenditures, source of funds, but you'll note that the basic setup for the parameter page is the same throughout. So I did want to point that out also. And these reports are here for your use. Now going back to the dashboard. If we start here at the top, if you need to for any reason, you can print the dashboard. And then you'll see here it says summary count at the top of the screen. And then you have the breakdown for the plan and the report. And it just gives you a brief idea of what's happening with your states and jurisdictions. Now, I just threw a bunch together. This isn't any specific region or SPO list. I just took a bunch of them and made up a list for myself. You'll notice that each of the states is a link. Now, if I click on the link, the state name, I'm going to use Maryland, it opens up its application list for each year. And so it will give you the progress of what's happening for that year, for that application. If ever you need to, you can come to this list, select whichever application year you want to look at, and you can come over and click on the print button, and it will print the entire, give you a hard copy of the entire application. So you can do that. And I'm also going to show you, you can, if you need to, just do individual tables within the application and print those out. But if you ever need a hard copy, this is where you can come to get that hard copy. All right, going to go back to the application dashboard. Once the state has gone in and activated the application, the button will appear. Now, for the plan, you'll notice this plan button, it just has plan, but for Oregon, it has a plan with an asterisk. If the plan has an asterisk next to it, that means it's a combined plan. That means it's both mental health and substance abuse. They're doing both at the same time. You don't have that for the report. The report is individual for each application, but the plan can be combined. Here you'll see we have number of open revisions. We have the plan and the report. You'll note that there is a number. That means that there are 3 revisions open in for smoke test 1. And if I click on the number, it'll open a second tab and will tell you what those revisions are and what they're for and what their status is. This one has been sent to the state, and this one the state has opened and has begun its revisions. So this is one place you can come to and quickly observe what's happening with your revision request. Once you're done, you simply close that tab and it takes you right back to the dashboard. And then you'll note here, we have the MHBG plan, and this is regarding the sign off and what the status is, where the SPOs are in their process of reviewing the checklist. And we have the same for the report. Here it's broken down for the report checklist and the URS checklist. And when you've signed off on the checklist, your name will appear with the time and date stamp. So this just gives you a quick look at where you are in the process of your checklist. The other thing I wanted to point out was I'm going to click on the plan. For the odd year, we call that the mini app year. And you'll note that it's broken down and there's a horizontal line here that separates them. So you have the 2020 information above the line and the 2021 information below the line for each section. So you'll see it here for planning tables and also for environmental factors and plans. This doesn't appear in the even year. So if I were to go to the 2020 dashboard, all I would see is the information for 2020. So just remember your odd years are your mini app years. So that's when the plan table will be broken out like it is for 2020 above and the odd year 2021 below the horizontal line. For the report, there is no such breakout. It's just the report this will just be the report for mental health block grant. But this is what the overview looks like. And then each of them is broken out into sections. So if you wanted to, you can simply go over here to the left-hand toolbar. And if I click on state information, here's the state information screen. And if you need to, once again, if you just need to print out one table, you can simply come here and click on print and you can have that information for that one table or that one screen. And they're all broken out. So you can use that if you wish. All right, coming back. Now, going back, I want to show you one other thing within the plan. You will note here, and Charlene's going to be covering, but I just wanted to point out, you'll notice that the revision request, the SAMHSA review, when I click on the SAMHSA review, this is the checklist. And as I said, Charlene's going to be covering these a little later, but I just wanted to show you they're located when you go into the overview, they're on the left-hand menu. And you'll also notice here's revision request, documentation log, and the status log. And they're all located along here on the left-hand side for each state. Each state is separated and you can do it individually. Okay, Crystal, do we have any questions?
No, we don't, Mary. No questions yet.
All right. Another couple things I wanted to point out here at the top. You have user management. You go in, and if you need to, you can update this information at any time. For support, now, you can create a support ticket, which will go to the help desk, and we do have some facts included. The one I wanted to point out was training. If you click on the training tab, you will note we have user manuals, or what we call navigation manuals, for all of the applications. And you'll see here for SAMHSA, we have the SAMH, SINAR, and PAMI navigation manuals. So you can come in here and click and open one of the navigation manuals and save it to your desktop. And it just does what it says. It just helps you navigate through the application. So if you have any questions, you can always refer to your navigation manual. And those are located under the Supports tab. The print queue is when you go, if you ever print something out, okay, you'll occasionally get the print queue. And what you simply do is it'll process through, but if you click on refresh, it'll update it, and then you can go ahead and print out whatever has been downloaded and save it to your desktop or print it out as a hard copy. All right. Charlene, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right.
I can see your screen.
All right. So this is the application of Illinois on our test environment. And I'm going to be showing you what happens once the state submits their application. So this is the plan, the MHBG plan for Illinois. And once the state submits their application, you should be receiving an automated email from the BGAS system stating that the application is now ready for your review. Once you receive that email, you may log into WebBGAS and open up the application for your state and navigate into the SAMHSA Review tab on the left-hand side. So as Mary had mentioned before, under the SAMHSA Review tab, you will be able to locate your checklist. This is the checklist for the MHBG plan. This is the format of all the checklists on the system that the SPOs use for their review. Over here, you have tabs that pertain to the sections of the application. So under each of these tabs, there are questions that belong to that section of the application. There is links to those forms, so there's easy access to the forms that the questions are about. If I click here, the forms are going to open up in a separate tab. The questions are mostly in the yes/no format, so you either answer a yes or a no based on your response to that question. Now, some of the questions will have a check mark against them, just like the one we see here. It tells you that the yes response is required for the checklist to be approved, which means that once all of these check-marked questions are answered a yes, or in some cases not applicable is also included in that. So if it's a yes or a not applicable response to all the check-marked questions, then you can see that the PO can approve the checklist. So as you can see, right now, the PO is not able to approve the checklist because that option is not active. Once the PO navigates through all these sections of the checklist and answers the questions, you can see that there are some questions with not applicable options as well. And all the checkmark questions are answered a yes or a not applicable. And I'm going to show you the other sections as well. They're all of the same format. You have the tables, table names and their links to the tables for your easy access, and the questions in the yes, no format, and sometimes text boxes as well. So once all the questions or all the required checkmark questions are answered a yes, you can save your responses using the save button. The cancel will take you out of this page and bring you back to the main screen of the SAMHSA review page. So let me save the answer that I just modified from a no to a yes. And since all the required questions with the check mark are now answered yes, you can see that the PO approve button is now active. So at this time, you can add your comments for approval. And these comments for approval can be modified as you go, as you're reviewing the checklist. They all stay on, the question stays on each of these tabs. So you can keep modifying or adding more stuff to this text box and clicking save. And if you'd like to open the application in a different tab, this is the link to do that. You'll see that the application opened in a separate tab. And at this time, if you're ready to approve the checklist, you initial the checklist and you click on PO approve. It's going to ask you for a confirmation. And it will take you back to the SAMHSA review screen where it's going to show that the person who signed, I'm logged in as the help desk, that's why it says the help desk, and the timestamp of when it was signed off. Now, as soon as you do this, what's going to happen is it's going to trigger an email, an automated email from the BGAS system to the TL of this application, letting them know that the application is now ready for TL review. So once the TL logs in, again, the same process, they log into the BGAS system, they look for their state, and once they see the SAMHSA review tab, there's the checklist that is accessible here. And at this time, as you can see, the PO approve is not active because it's already approved. And now the TL can either approve the checklist or reject the checklist. So if the TL does not agree with something that's on the checklist, they can go ahead and reject. I'm going to initial it first. They can do the review of the application and the checklist and decide to reject it. Now, as you can see, what happened was when the TL rejected the checklist, it went back to the PO approval process, and the signed off information is now gone, because now the PO has to log into the system again and redo the checklist and then go back to doing the PO approval. So again, if you, let's say you changed whatever was needed and then you approve, you send it back to TL. And again, your information is here and the TL logs back in to review the changes and the checklist. At this time, if they approve the checklist, they can initial it, and this time approve it, confirm it, and you will notice that now the TL has signed off on the checklist and the timestamp also appears. So this is the approval process for the checklist for the plan. I'm also going to show you what happens in a report. For the report, I'm going to use the state of Alaska. And as you can see, under the SAMHSA review tab, and this is the default screen if the application is submitted, this is the default screen that you'll see when you log into the application. On the report side, you have two checklists for MHBG report. One is the CMHS report checklist. Exact same format. You have the save, cancel, print buttons. Again, you can use the print button to print the checklist, open application to open the application on a separate tab. You have tabs for each of the sections of the application and the questions, yes and no, pertaining to that section of the application, along with links to each of the forms in the application. Again, the required questions have to be answered a yes. So I'm going to save a yes answer to the required questions. As you can see, there's some data that is pulled from the application as well for your easy access. And then there are some questions with text boxes as well. Now, as I save all the questions with the check mark, with a yes, you'll see that the PO approve button becomes active. And this is the box where you can put in your comments for approval. The exact same process applies for this checklist as well. And so I'll go back and I will show you the checklist. The second checklist that's on there is the URS checklist. This checklist also has the same format, but since there are no required questions on this checklist, so the PO approve button is already active. Now, these are the questions that belong or they relate to all the URS tables on the MH report. So there are questions about comparisons with the numbers from the previous report. There are questions about some of the numbers on the report, some data being pulled from the application forms for your easy access. And otherwise, the format is exactly the same. You have links to all of these forms that the questions are about. And once you save all your answers to the checklist, you can do the exact same thing about putting your initials and approve the checklist. And again, the TL will then receive an automated email from BGAS, and they can reject or approve the checklist. Another thing I'd like to show you is what happens in a combined plan or in a 2-year plan. Let me first show you what happens in a combined plan. When the plan is combined for both SABG and MHBG, you will see that the SAMHSA review tab, which again is the default screen that opens up when the application is submitted, you'll see that there are checklists for treatment, prevention, and mental health, all on this page. So the SABG treatment, PO and TL will use this checklist. The prevention folks will use the CSAP PO-TL checklist, but for you, you only need to use the mental health checklist. So what I'm trying to show you is that on this screen, on a combined plan, you will see that there are more checklists visible, but you're only going to use the mental health checklist. Another thing that I'd like to show you is what happens in a 2-year plan. So this is let me open the 2020-2021 plan. And you'll notice that when this is a 2-year plan, So the checklists appear on the SAMHSA Review tab only once, but here's a drop down when you can choose the checklist, whether you want the checklist to be open for the 2020 plan or the 2021 plan. So make sure you use the right option in the drop down menu and click on this button Go to access the checklist for that year. All right, so that was all about the checklist. And now I'm going to be talking about the revision requests. So when you're reviewing the application or filling up the checklist, you might come across a scenario where you'd like the state to make a change in the application. So during that time, what you can do is you can either access the revision requests tab on the application, or you can go to the form itself and issue a revision on that form. So first, I'm going to show you how you can use the revision requests tab. So you click on revision requests, and I know Mary briefly showed you the screen. You click on the section of the application where your form resides, which needs to have a revision. So let's say you'd like to issue a revision on table 4. So what you do is you go into the planning tables, you see table 4, you click on plus, and these are all the existing revisions. These are the existing revisions on that table. So if you'd like to create a revision on this table, you click on add a revision on that table. You'll notice that there is a box open up for you, and here you will write the description of the revision. Let's say you say change the dollar amounts on row 3 or row 2. And then once the description is added, you click on save. Now you'll see that the description that you added is now saved. And it also tells you, the system will tell the users that it was created by this person on this date and this time. And the status now is created. But this does not mean that it is sent to the state yet. So this is only in the status created. So this is created. You can edit it at this time if you'd like. To add something, maybe say row 3 and 4, and now click save again. So you can make changes at this time. Or if you issued a revision, or if you just created a revision by mistake, you may delete the revision at this time. Now, if you'd like to send the revision to the state, you use this button, send to state. Now, this is when the revision is actually sent to the state. So with that click of a button that we just saw, an email would go out to the state users of that state for that application, that a revision is created and they need to act on it. At this time, you cannot do anything but just wait for your state users to respond to the revision and make changes. And once the state user makes their changes, completes their revision, you will receive an automated email from BGAS system saying that the revision is completed and is ready for your review. So not something that you will be able to see, but because I have admin rights and I can impersonate a state user. So as a state user, they will start the revision, they will make the changes to the form, whatever you've asked them to do, and they will complete the revision. So once the revision is completed, again, you will receive an email from BGAS, and when you log into the system, you will see this. You will see that the status of the revision is now completed, and now you have to approve or disapprove the revision. So you can use the View Form button to view form on a separate tab. So let's say you look at the changes that the state made to respond to the revision, and you're fine with what the state, the changes that the state made, and you can approve the revision, or if you'd like the state to make more changes, then you can disapprove the revision. And here is when you enter the reason for disapproval. And let's say you decide to disapprove. You'll notice that the status is now sent to state post disapproval. This means that now, again, you're disapproving the revision, and that's why it's gone back to the state with the reason for disapproval, so they need to make more changes to the form. So again, the state, again, you cannot see this part, but the state will again start the revision, look at the reason for disapproval, and based on that, they make their changes to the form. They complete the revision, and then you get an email from the BGAS system saying that the revision is now completed, and you log back into the system, you check the changes that the state made, and if you're okay with that, you use the approve revision to approve the changes. And now you'll see that the status is now approved. Now there can be multiple revisions on different tables within the application, or on the same table, there could be multiple revisions. So on the screen, you can filter the revisions based on those statuses. So if you'd like to see which forms are without revisions, it opens up the forms without the revisions. If you'd like to see the forms with the revisions, it opens up those forms and the revisions. As you can see, this is the created revision. This is just created. This is a completed revision. This is the revision that was sent to state. So all of these revisions open up based on the filter that you use. So you have all these different states: sent to state, in progress, completed, approved, disapproved, like we just saw. And let's just see, this is the approved, the one that we just did. So you can filter the revisions based on these statuses. Again, with the 2-year application, you'll have 2 tabs, one for the first year and one for the second year. Now let me show you the same process on the form level. So if you'd like to, so let's say you're reviewing the form and you'd like to issue a revision on this form. You really don't need to go into the revision request screen to do that. That was one of the options you can use. You can even use the request revision button on the form itself. When you click, it's the exact same thing. You enter the description, you save the description, you see that the status is now created. And at this time, if you'd like to edit or delete, you can do that. Or if you're okay with the revision that you've just created, you send the revision to the state. The status is now sent to state, and the same process follows. The state will start and complete the revision, and then you will be able to see the options to approve or disapprove the revision. So this was issuing the revisions at the form level. Do we have any questions, Crystal?
No, we do not.
All right, so the last topic that I'm going to cover is the documentation log. And I'd like to mention that we're making major enhancements to this feature. So a lot will be changed very soon, but I'm going to show you what's already there on the system right now, so you can use it. But once we make those major enhancements and complete that activity, then we will be having another training on the documentation logs, so you can be familiar with the new documentation log features. But currently what exists on BGAS is what I'm going to show you right now. So within each of the applications in the system, you'll see there is an option for documentation log on the left-hand side menu tree. So you can use this if you'd like to stay in this application. And what this does is it lets you add notes, add your personal notes into the system for that application. So for example, you're a PO or a TL for Connecticut, and you'd like to add a note about a site visit. So you're already in the application, so the state is Connecticut, the year is 2020, and of course you can change it here. You may choose another state, another fiscal year, another application. So let's say you want to say this, because this is a combined application, you want it to say MH plan. And these are the type of activities that you can use for your note. For example, as I said, this is a note for site visit. And these are the optional fields. So if you'd like to talk about, let's say, a particular table or form this note is about, these are all the POs related to that application. Sorry, these are all the state users that are related with that application or that year or that state. And these are all the POs that may be related to that application. So you can choose to select these fields or choose to ignore it. These are not mandatory fields, these are optional fields. And any date that you'd like to associate with your note. For example, the site visit happened last week. And then you'd like to add something over here. And this is going to be the note that you can save using the Save Note button. And this is going to be saved in the system. If you'd like to add attachments, as you can see, that can be done after the note is added. So once the note is saved, you use the attachments button, choose your file here and upload the file, and the file will be attached to this note. I chose my file, click upload, and the file is now attached with the note. The second tab on this feature is to search for your note. So again, you can select your state, you can select your fiscal year, you can select the application. Let's say I'm selecting the note, I'm searching for the note that I just created. And for the type of activity, this is multiple select, so you can filter those that you're looking for and scroll down to click save. So I'm looking for site visit kind of note, and I'm going to search for it. So this was the note that was just added. But again, if you'd like to, let's say, look for what happened on this application, all the activities that happened on this application, for example, you can use status log, save, search. And you will note that all the records to display all the activities that happened on this application, they're displayed here. So even the revisions that we just created, that the revision was created, it was changed to send to state, this was a description, and it was completed with this revision description. All of that can be searched for under this documentation log feature. All right, Crystal, do we have any questions?
No, no questions.
All right, so that was my part. Mary, would you like to take over and unmute the audience?
Sure. Hold on just a second. All right. We're going to go ahead and unmute. Let me pull. Okay, I have unmuted everyone. So if you have any questions you would like to ask, go ahead. Michelle, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to say.
Yes, actually, I raised my hand, but then I lowered it because I figured I'd just ask at the end. But Charlene, can you show how to do a revision request while you're in the checklists and then go to the form and then do the revision request? Because that's how I tend to do it. It's an easier way of keeping track of my revision requests.
Okay, so what you're trying to say is I go into the checklist and open the form from there?
Yes.
Okay. All
because
right.
that's
So
usually what I'm doing is I'm reviewing the form from the checklist. So then if I find that I need a revision request, I just issue it right from there.
okay. So when the PO or the TL is reviewing the checklist, and there is, as I mentioned before, there's this easy access to all the forms of that application. So let's say you're reviewing the state information form, and the state information form is opened on another tab in your browser, and you're reviewing the form to answer the question, and you find something needs to be revised, and that's when you click on request revision, enter your description, save, and then, as I mentioned before, the status now is created, but it is now not sent to the state yet. So to send it to the state, you use this button, send to state. And at this time, the state now knows that there is a revision you're asking for on this page. And then you can just close it out because you don't want to mix these two screens. You close it out and you wait for the state to respond.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. And you guys, just so you know, most of the times on the state information page, what you're going to find is they miss marking yes or no for the third party administrator. Most states do not have third party administrators, but sometimes they miss marking that. So we have to go back in and do a revision request and ask them to mark yes or no. If there is a third party administrator, they have to enter the information and the box will drop down when for the states when they click yes. There'll be a box for them to enter the organization name and address and that sort of thing. So that's usually what I find needs updating on this form. Most of the time, everything else, unless they don't put the contact person responsible for application submission. So sometimes you have to submit a revision request for them to complete that as well. So that's what I have on that form.
And I just wanted to point out two things covering what Michelle and Charlene have both said. As Charlene said, if you're doing this from the checklist, you'll open up a second tab. Please remember to close that second tab because I know this from experience, I will come in and I'll notice I have 10 tabs open here at the top because what I've done is I've completed the state revision on the form itself, and then I've clicked on the revision request in the menu tree. So just make sure you go back and forth between the two and not have multiple tabs open here at the top.
Yes, because with multiple tabs open, you do not get the reminder. There's a little timeout box that'll pop up if you've had a screen open too long.
Exactly.
And if you're in like the 5th tab, you're not going to get that screen So then it times out on you and you might lose all of the data that you just typed in. So always make sure you're going back to that main screen after you're done.
And thank you, Michelle, for that support. You just
Yeah, I've
explained
lost way too much data. So believe me, I've learned my lesson.
brilliantly. And also,
Yeah.
the way I and Charlene have navigated through the system is one way. We're not here to tell you this is the way you have to do it. Whatever you become comfortable with when you're in the system is fine. There isn't just one way to navigate within the system. All right. Any other questions? Well, we want to thank you all for attending. If you do have any questions, you can always contact our team at the Help Desk. Derek and Avi are really good at helping people negotiate the system. Or you can also contact I or Charlene, and we'll be more than happy to give you a hand. And on that note, I'm going to say goodbye. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day and take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.